Okay, so back to Defense Distributed. It's a business, it's a commercial enterprise, but I can't figure out whether, and obviously you're both, but like, are you an entrepreneur or are you on a life mission which is defending a certain amount of rights?
Honestly, I'll tell you, I think it's neither.
Okay.
I don't know that I'm an entrepreneur because I'm not very good at business. I try to get better. I think I'm better than I used to be.
Yeah.
But for me, everything begins with the symbolic layer of our culture, or you could say like our sociology. And so like in Bitcoin and Austrian economics, the kind of favorite sociology of like that type of business person, everything's reason-oriented, praxeology, what's my best decision, and Curtis calls it pig philosophy. Everything's based on these hedonic indicators, and I'm going to make a good decision versus a bad trade-off. I start with what's the most eruptive, what's the most initiatory, like what challenges power, like what's exciting, how do I align my fears and my hopes in one thing, and what's a desperate decision that can actually start a symbolic chain reaction, and then how do I pursue that? How do I do something like an artistic act or a created object that could be received by an audience as like this kind of provocation to initiate some type of chain reaction? And
so you're an artist, a provocateur.
Yeah, it's probably art, right? It's probably art. But I'm not so pretentious. It's mostly business now.
Yeah.
But every product, it has to follow this strict set of rules. It has to be an analogy for something. It has to introduce elements of randomness and like ludic qualities, and it has to kind of have its own logic and be understood as something else by a specific audience. If it doesn't do those things, well, then yeah, it's just naked craftsmanship or something, and that's boring.
Have you seen a change over these 7 years? Well, you must have seen
yes
some
and no.
changes,
I mean, I absolutely think it's performance art. It's not just an art piece; it's performance art. It's a
the
critique.
unpretentious. We can claim it as you just can't.
She's diminishing me by calling
Sorry.
it
No, but not
because it does the thing it says it's
gonna
doing.
do.
It
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
the thing, and it's nothing if it doesn't do the thing.
It forces the hand or forces the onlooker to deal with it. That's why it's also performance art. It's just not something that's put on the wall and you can walk by it and ignore it. It's a piece. It's like Abramovich cutting a star on her abdomen while sitting on ice in a room. You can't ignore it, whether you like the woman or not. This is a graphic and aggressive form that means to critique. I think it's also like I've saw it come first from a very mischievous place.
Yeah.
Not to overuse
No,
the
it's
idea
true.
of a
It's true.
troll.
Yeah.
But like, and in like a very mischievous kind of troll but knew exactly what it purported to want to do, which was to challenge.
But I think there's two types of there is vicious, unnecessary bully trolling, which we get a lot of.
Yeah.
But then there is trolling which challenges people to think.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And the challenge for me in such a scenario with what you're doing and why I wanted to talk to you is because I actually don't... the challenge isn't with regards to the US. That's not really what I'm thinking about. It is, wow, technology is fantastic for people in Myanmar right now, under attack from the government. But shit, what does this mean if some kid in the UK gets access to this where I live, where we don't have a gun culture? And I'm weighing up that it's a bit like Bitcoin. Bitcoin can be used right now to raise money for the Ukrainian army, and it can also be used right now by North Korea. It's like these situations when you make these technologies openly available, it's available to everyone. What does it mean for both? And that makes you think about these things.
Well, it's the same conversation that has kicked up ever since 2012, right? How do you differentiate between the usefulness of it and like that one bad actor or that one bad instant? And you can't. Just bringing back up Silk Road, they really went with this moral attack at the end after they sentenced him by bringing up all the parents. And they created this kind of like moral attack on him. How could you, which unfortunate things happen, but you can't denounce an entire, like a different kind of ethics. And he was creating a different kind of way of looking at the distribution of drugs, like eBay, but better. We're gonna offer it off the streets, whether you like it or not. There was a beauty to it. There was an elegance. Yeah. So in the same way, offering the ability for individuals to return to self-defense is going to have an opposite. There's always going to be the negative and positive. But is it positive? Does the positive outweigh those situations?
I can give you a personal story on that Silk Road one, because it helps me understand why people, how people manipulate people. So I was a Silk Road user at the time, and I was essentially a cocaine addict, regular user of cocaine. I don't take any drugs now.
Besides that one.
But at the time I was in a bad way,
Yeah.
and I ended up using the forums on the Silk Road that actually helped me realize my problem and deal with it.
Interesting.
And the Drug Policy Alliance is very clear that the Silk Road reduced harm, reduced violence, and reduced damage because it was a better product. So there was less risk of contamination. There was less violence on the street because it was package delivery, and the forums were there. So when they brought I think it was was there 7 deaths associated with the Silk Road? That was used for an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
It wasn't objective in any way.
They brought the parents in for the impact statement.
I was sitting there.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah, I was
Oh,
there.
wow. So I can imagine there are very similar emotional examples that may or could be used against you.
You would think
They
so.
try.
You would think so. But living in a world of printed guns for so long, almost a decade, there aren't really classic examples yet,
It's more done in questioning
which is
and
telling in its own way. But
But it could happen. There could be a scenario where somebody does.
well, let's say it will happen.
Okay,
Let's say it will. But there are bigger differences between the Silk Road, I think, in our operation. Probably first and foremost, that like our philosophical principles begin with, because it's code, they begin with the freedom of speech, like we've discussed, and then they begin with like open source software development principles. And so it's more like, books and bullets have their own destinies. Like it's more like we create something. It's technological. It's software. It can exist on the free internet. In digitality, it can multiply endlessly. And so it's not like we're a business establishing the quality of a product, although there's elements of that. It's more like we're contributing to the total knowledge of society, and it just so happens that it's easy to make a gun, no matter what country you're in. It's easy to do. That's something that governments can't easily deal with. And in fact, you should then, from a materialist point of view, should look back and say, what type of government is now allowed or not allowed because of this state of technology? Carroll Quigley argued that democracy only became possible with the mass production of the rifle, for example. Well, we're all comfortable with democracy and the mass production of the rifle. So what changes if, the home production of the SMG is now like a feature of the internet? I don't know, but that's the exciting possibility, and that's the work that we're doing.
And I guess this is an inevitability. So you recognize this. If it wasn't you, it'd be somebody else. And if it wasn't somebody else, it'd be another person.
It's been said a lot.
Yeah.
It's no doubt true. Like we didn't invent 3D printers, and we didn't invent the making of guns. It's not really true that 3D printed guns begin with us. It's just that they begin with us in this important dimension of marketing or information capitalism, where we put our own stamp on it and say, hey, this is like WikiLeaks, and you need to try to deal with this.